You know, the EU's AI Act is this massive, world-changing law. But the real story, the part that shows you how tricky this all is often buried in the details. Today, we're going to pull out just one of those details, Article 33, to really see how the sausage of AI safety gets made.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll meet the folks who are supposed to be the AI inspectors. Then we'll get into a big problem they face. We're going to follow the 3-year journey of how the rules got made, see what they finally agreed on, and then talk about why one tiny rule can make a huge difference.
All right, first up, the AI safety inspectors. Before we can even talk about the rules, we need to know who's actually holding the clipboard, right? Who's the ref on the field?
And that's really the million-dollar question. We've got AI making decisions in really important stuff like medicine or even who gets a job. So who's the watchdog? Who's making sure this technology is actually safe before it touches our lives?
Well, the EU has an answer. They're called notified bodies. The best way to think of them is like building inspectors, but for AI. Their entire job is to check the high-risk stuff, make sure it's built to code, and give it the stamp of approval. They're the official guardians.
Okay, but here's where things get a little sticky. These inspectors are brilliant, for sure, but AI is just wildly complex. There's no way they can be experts in absolutely everything. And that leads to a huge problem: outsourcing.
Which brings us right to the heart of it. If an inspector hires a specialist, and that specialist messes up, who's on the hook? Who takes the fall? Can you actually outsource the work and the responsibility? This single question is exactly what Article 33 is all about.
So you've got this classic tug of war. On one side, you absolutely need to bring in experts for this incredibly complicated tech. But on the other side, every time you add someone to the chain, you create a risk that responsibility gets fuzzy and that mistakes fall through the cracks.
So, how did they solve this puzzle? Well, it's pretty fascinating because this wasn't some quick fix. It was a full-on 3-year legislative battle. So let's trace the journey of how this one rule got hammered out.
The whole thing kicked off in 2021 with the first draft. But for the next couple of years, the European Parliament and the Council were just going back and forth, hashing it out, rewriting, and debating, until they finally landed on a compromise this year, in 2024.
And all that negotiating, it really came down to 3 big battlegrounds. Number 1, responsibility. Just how far does it go? Number 2, transparency. How much do we get to see? And number 3, consent. Who gets the final say on bringing in outside help? Let's start with responsibility. The first idea back in 2021 was, let's just say, ambitious. It basically said inspectors were responsible for their subcontractors no matter where they were in the world. Great in theory, but in practice, a total nightmare to enforce. So the final version got much smarter. It says the responsibility is tied specifically to the tasks that were outsourced. It's a small change in words, but a huge change in making the rule actually work.
Next up, transparency. And this is a big one. You might be surprised to hear this, but the original draft had a huge blind spot. There was no rule saying the public had to be told who these subcontractors were. Talk about a potential loophole. Thankfully, the final text slammed that door shut with a very simple, very powerful rule. You have to publish a public list. That's a huge win for accountability. And finally, consent. The first plan was simple. The company that made the AI had to approve any subcontractors. But then, in 2022, a committee tried to flip that on its head. They wanted to give that power to a government authority instead. That would have been a massive power shift. But in the end, they went back to the original idea, keeping control in the hands of the AI's creator. They get to decide who gets to look under the hood.
So, after 3 years of wrestling with responsibility, transparency, and consent, where did we end up? What does the final rulebook actually say? It all boils down to 4 really solid pillars. First, you can't hire B players. Subcontractors have to meet the same high standards. Second, you can't pass the buck. The main inspector takes full responsibility. Third, the creator gets a say. The AI provider has to give the okay. And fourth, you got to keep the receipts. All the records have to be kept for 5 years, just in case.
And really, this one sentence says it all. Notified bodies shall take full responsibility for the tasks performed. It's crystal clear. There's no wiggle room. It means you can get help, sure, but the buck stops with you. Period.
Okay, I know what you might be thinking. This sounds like a lot of legal jargon, right? Why are we geeking out over one article? But trust me, the ripple effects of this single rule are actually huge.
For the folks building the AI, it means they don't lose control over their secret sauce. For you and me, the citizens, it's a much stronger guarantee that the people checking high-risk AI are completely on the hook. And for the rest of the world watching, well, it creates a powerful roadmap for how anyone can handle accountability when technology gets this complicated.
And that's the real takeaway here, isn't it? This whole 3-year saga proves that making AI trustworthy isn't just about writing better code, it's about building a trustworthy human system around the tech, with clear rules, clear responsibility, and real consequences.
You know, seeing how much work went into this one single rule is pretty impressive. It shows a real commitment to getting the details right. But it does leave you wondering, doesn't it? As these systems get more powerful and more global, is even the most perfectly written rule enough to guarantee our trust?